So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
Hey, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. Okay, I have to be completely honest with you guys. This must be an episode that really needs to come out because, oh my gosh, like all of the barriers that have come up trying to get, like, the opposition trying to get me to stop getting this episode out has been insane. Usually, like I said, I make sure that I have several weeks worth of episodes scheduled, but I have also been sick for several weeks and haven't been able to get an episode done to make sure that it goes out on time today. So I apologize, guys, for the lateness, but I did definitely wanted to make sure it got out. But the other thing too, which is really crazy, is like my equipment has been breaking today. I had to do a bunch of work to try to get my equipment to work. I've never had any problems with it at all, but I finally got it all working again. And then I've had like back-to-back calls ever since I finally got my equipment working. So it's been kind of a random, kind of crazy last few weeks. And so it's been very interesting that this episode, because I'm talking about today, like how if betrayal happens once, it's on them. But if betrayal happens twice, it's on us, right? It's kind of like if it happens once, shame on them. If it happens twice, shame on us. And I want to talk about like how boundaries shift that whole thing. Okay? So that way it never stops. Like the betrayal stops with us. Okay? So we're going to get into that. But I also wanted to tell you guys, if you want help healing from trauma, setting unbreakable boundaries, living the life and creating the life and living that you want, that you would love, let's get a call scheduled, okay? Because I am offering 30-minute unbreakable boundary calls, okay? Let me give you guys the link to that. The link to schedule that call is calendly.com/Erin Anderson coaching / creating your unbreakable boundaries. I'm going to give you that one more time because I know that's a lot, okay? But if you guys want help, personalized help with any one of those things, feel free to get a call, okay? These calls are free. No expectations whatsoever, okay? They're just designed there to help you, okay? calendly.com /Erin Anderson coaching / creating your unbreakable boundaries. Okay. If you guys want a call, get them scheduled. They are actually going really, really fast. So make sure you get your schedule today. If you can't get a time in, please just wait a couple of days or even one day and get in and get the next time slot that opens, okay? So get in, get those calls scheduled. Let's get into today's bread and butter, which we're talking about how betrayal, once on them, twice on us, okay? See, we're going to talk about why betrayal keeps repeating and how boundaries break that cycle, because here's the thing. We've got to take a loving and honest, non-judgmental look at ourselves when betrayal is constantly coming our way. And I get it. I don't like being disrespected either. At all. As a matter of fact, it really drives me crazy. And a large part of it is because I consider myself to be a very respectful person. And when somebody doesn't have the decency or the grace to respect me back, it's kind of like, wow, that kind of sucks, right? I get it. But here's the thing. We do want to take a look at ourselves, not from shame, not from blame, but from a place of actual love, okay? Because here's the thing about love. Let's define that for a second, because I talk about this. Like, what is your highest form of love? I have clients, potential clients calling in all the time, and this is the first key ingredient that we have to establish. You know, when I ask people, well, what is your highest form of love, whether they be Christian or no, you know, a lot of times they tell me, well, my family, my grandkids, my kids, my husband, and those are all fabulous. But they cannot love unconditionally. I love pretty unconditionally, but even I don't have that capacity, right? Simply because I'm human and I make mistakes and I'm still learning. When I talk about love, like what is out there that loves you so purely that it knows how many hairs are on your head? What is out there that loves you so purely that it knows exactly why you were created and is excited about it? What is out there that loves you so incredibly purely that it created a banana in Ecuador and sent it to your grocery store because it created that banana just for you, had the exact right ingredients in it just for you? What is out there that loves you so purely that judgment is not possible? It accepts all pieces of you because this is our source of truth. Something that loves us that unconditionally will not put the barriers of judgment on us because it wants to create us. It wants us to grow. It wants us to evolve into something even better than what we are. because that's what truth and love do. However, a lie, it'll take a fact and then it'll use that fact to try to destroy. That's the difference between truth and lies. Truth will take the fact and then use it to create. A lie will take the fact and use it to destroy. A good example of this, okay? And talking about highest form of love, type of energy and type and mindset, okay? You can take a look at your weight and it might say 215 pounds, okay? Mine has, okay? And I'm like 5'2", 5'3". I'm not very tall, okay? I'm considered obese. I have no shame about that. And here's why, okay? I can take that fact. I am 215 pounds, okay? I can do one of two things with it. I can believe the truth or I can believe a lie. The lie would tell me I'm disgusting. I'm an abomination. Nobody wants me. I'm never going to be desired again. I'm not good enough. I am hideous. Blah, 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 blah. Me, 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 me. Just sits there and chats in my ear. Actually screams in my ear. Okay? But because I want to subscribe to love, because I want to subscribe to truth, I don't listen to that. Because that's destructive thought processes. That's destructive mindset. That's destructive energy. And that will get us signed up for consistent betrayal. Because that's what it wants to do. It wants us to betray ourselves. That's what lies do. However, what about this one? I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. They are my highest form of love. They are the thing that is out there that loves me so purely that judgment is not possible. They just encircle me in their love. They want to see me be the very best version of myself. I want that too. So I want to create myself with them by my side. Therefore, the belief I subscribe to is my body is the physical manifestation of God's love for me. That it has my back. The entire time, it has always had my back. Every little fat bubble that's on my body is just a little fat bubble that's encapsulating toxins to try and minimize any damage, any possible problems that I could possibly have. My body is simply communicating to me of its needs so that way it can have my back even better. I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to work with my body. I'm going to love my body into healing. It's a completely different mindset. And this is why it's really important to understand the difference between truth and lies. Because one will keep you subscribed to betrayal, while the other keeps you subscribed to freedom and safety. That's the truth of it. But here's what the kicker is. This is what's crazy about this, my loves, is when we keep subscribing to lies, because somewhere down deep inside of us, we've taught ourselves that that's humility. When we keep subscribing to the lie, what tends to happen is other people show up to try to quote unquote prove it to us. And the reason why they do is because we're already focused that direction. So here's the thing. It's not because you're weak. It's just somewhere along the way you were taught not to have boundaries, because to understand truth and love is also to understand boundaries. Let me explain what a boundary is, okay? A boundary is not what happens between you and another person. And this is big when I'm talking about the difference between truth and lies, okay? Because other people present themselves with facts and then can lead us one way or the other, right? It happens a lot in our lives. Even people that have the very best of intentions can sometimes lead us in the direction of a lie. This is why boundaries are really, really important. It's because it's not about like what happens between you and them. That's just a result of a boundary. What a real boundary is what you subscribe for yourself, who you decide to be, who you decide to show up as, how you decide to live within your values. That's a boundary. And that matters because when you choose to live in your highest self, you're choosing to live in truth and love. You're subscribing to that creation of self, a better you for tomorrow, and to like a better you for today and tomorrow and the next day, right? Like that's what boundaries do. Because you are choosing who you are and how you choose to show up because you love the result. You tend to love who you are when you show up a certain way, right? Like you think go back to like the description between whether we're fat or not, right? Like what does that 215 pounds mean? Well, the one will make me loathe myself. The one meaning will make me loathe myself, leading to a path of self-destruction, right? Whereas the other subscription leads to a path of deeper self-love, deeper self-compassion, and deeper self-growth. It gives me the opportunity to really step into my mission, my purpose, my power, and create a life with God. That's what a boundary does. I refuse to believe what the adversary wants me to believe, or any adversary for that matter. If somebody came up to me and told me that I need to go on a diet because they think I'm disgusting, well, I'm literally going to look at them and say, well, thanks for your opinion. I didn't ask for it, but you're welcome to believe what you want to about me. Because I don't subscribe to that.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a faithful listener to the other side of the struggle? Have you loved the other side of the struggle for as long as you've been listening to it? Have you been waiting and begging for more episodes to come out? Well, good news. Come 2026, the very first part, the other side of the struggle is coming back better than ever, better than it's ever been, just for you listeners. So now you can heal your trauma in ways that you've never realized were possible before. So tune in, 2026, we're coming back. I'm not subscribing to that. But if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, better health. I've been doing this and this and this and this, and I feel a lot more energy and I feel a lot more clarity. I've been able to do a lot more things. I'm going to listen to that, right? Because that's in alignment with my value, health, clarity, focus. So how does
this description of boundaries change your relationships? Because here's the deal. If you are listening to this podcast right now, chances are that your relationships probably need a little bit of polishing. There's no shame in that. Truly, there's no shame in that, okay? Oftentimes, our betrayals by the people we love are usually them living outside of a good boundary too. I think about my husband and, a lot of the things that he and I have dealt with. And oftentimes, especially like with his pornography addiction, which by the way, he's still doing better than he's ever done. Because I subscribe to boundaries. That's really the reason why. Our boundaries influence the boundaries of other people. Because when we set standards for ourselves and somebody doesn't set standards for themselves, that does create a discrepancy, a major discrepancy, actually. And that becomes a problem because it creates a chasm in our relationships. So one of two things has to happen. We have to hold our ground and allow them to come up. Actually, three things happen. One of three things happen, which is exactly what happened with me and my husband. I subscribed to boundaries. He didn't like it at first, but then he started subscribing to boundaries and found out he actually kind of liked himself. And as he liked himself, his behavior changed too. Go figure. People don't behave above their self-belief. Or I've also seen it go the other way, where the other person decides that boundaries are dumb and stupid and you're too much or you have to people please, and people slide into that, losing their sense of self, losing their sense of self-respect. Or the third thing that happens is the relationship breaks apart. Sometimes that is necessary too. I have a beautiful client right now who she subscribed to her boundaries. Her soon-to-be former husband refused to subscribe to boundaries because he didn't like himself, he didn't like anyone, and he just wanted her to hate herself too. Very sad. It was actually very sad. And because she would not subscribe to that, the marriage broke apart. It ended. Not amicably either, which is unfortunate. However, when our boundaries match up, marriages heal, relationships heal, and we become people that we love even more and trust even more. So when I say that if betrayal happens once on them, but if betrayal consistently happens, there's somewhere down deep inside of ourselves that we are allowing that to happen. Now, I want to say that with love. I'm definitely not saying that with any type of animosity or judgment, because I've been there. I have absolutely 110,000% been in that situation where betrayal kept happening and happening and happening and happening. But as I look behind why the betrayal kept happening, it was because I was shrinking. I was trying to people please, trying to control, and never once was I actually, like, thought I was actually thinking of myself. And in a way I was thinking of my own safety, because I learned that that's what safety was to shrink, to people please, to walk on eggshells, right? To be quote unquote agreeable. But that never got me out of betrayal. that just kept getting me walked on. And that was not a good feeling. I didn't like it. But I'll tell you what, I'm grateful that I had the experience, because had I not had that experience, had I not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't have the understanding I have today. And I wouldn't have this podcast, and I wouldn't be teaching you. These are really, really good things that I had to go through. It kind of stunk in the moment. It stunk in the moment. But I do not regret going through it for 1 second. The ability for me to go through it meant that I can understand the other side of it. That's why I've named this podcast The Other Side of the Struggle. Behind my continual betrayal was me consistently showing up by shrinking, people pleasing, walking on eggshells, not rocking the boat, etc., because I had learned that conflict was only controlled by my disappearing. That's what I learned safety was. But it was really interesting that I didn't feel safe in safety. Once I first started boundaries, it wasn't easy, because everybody had expected me to show up a certain way, and I was doing something completely different. I had people screaming in my face. I was in conflict quite a bit with my relationships. I had people shutting down, shutting me out in more conflict, and I didn't like that either. But the one place I wasn't in conflict with anymore was with myself. At least I was showing up for me. At least I was being true to who I was. At least I was showing myself respect. That didn't mean that I had to get confrontational. That's not one of my boundaries. As a matter of fact, one of my boundaries is I'm deeply respectful. I value respect. Therefore, I act in respect. That's what boundaries are. We value something, therefore we act inside of it because we love ourselves when we do. Even though somebody else could be screaming at me and screaming in my face, I could finally listen, or like just whatever, or even stop them and be like, hey, I can't hear you right now. All I can hear is you screaming. I'm pretty sure you have a message for me in there somewhere, but I can't hear it with your screaming. When you can speak to me with respect and calmness, we'll talk. And I literally would walk out. I didn't have to stay in the disrespect. I didn't have to stay in the conflict. I could choose to leave. And oftentimes I did. With my husband, it was a little harder because we lived together, right? But I would still call out the behavior. I remember one time I was explaining to him how his actions had affected me, and he started to pout. And he put, like, think about a toddler and their arms crossed across their chest and they're pouting because they don't like what you have to say, right? And I called him out on that. Just because you don't like what I have to say doesn't mean you get to act like a giant toddler. One of the things that makes me respect a man is when he can be emotionally available and intelligent with me. Right now, this is not emotional availability or intelligence. Well, what do you expect me to do? Oh, I just explained what I expected. Is some emotional intelligence and availability. Shutting me out doesn't work. I can't change that. I can't make you be available. I can't make you be intelligent emotionally. You're very intelligent mentally. But if these are things that you're not willing to give then I need to end the relationship because they're not things I'm willing to live without. See, when we start to live within our boundaries, it gives us clarity in communication. When we stop allowing betrayal, we start allowing our boundaries. It takes practice. But eventually, when we start living in self-love, that is what we start exuding. That is what starts flowing out from us. And difficult people in our lives do respond to that. Some of the most difficult people in my life are some of the people I am the most close with now. And there are some people that don't want to subscribe to that, and that's okay. They don't have to. But I don't have to subscribe to what they subscribe to either. My joy matters. People can only betray the access we keep giving them. And we keep giving them access when we're not living in boundaries, when we're not living in self-love, when we're not living in a way that gives us a relationship with ourselves. So, my loves, I hope this was helpful. Okay? Don't forget that if you guys would like some support, make sure you are setting up a time to chat with me. Calendly.com/Anderson-coaching/creating-your-unbreakable-boundaries. Okay? This will also be put in the description below of the podcast. Okay? So feel free to book that call if you guys would like to heal from trauma, create unbreakable boundaries, or create the life and living that you love, or all three. I'm here to help that journey. I really do want to see you guys begin to create the boundaries that will begin to heal you and your relationships and your money story too, because guys, I can't tell you how many times when my clients and I have lived our boundaries, how that has actually created money for us. It's crazy. It's insane how often that happens. So if you would like more money, better relationships, and more insane self-respect and confidence, and you want help with that, book that call. I'd love to chat. All right, my loves. Until next week, I'll see you soon. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna be awesome.